Welcome to Politics Done Right. Good morning, Vietnam. Oops. No. We are in Houston. Good morning, Houston. How are my peeps doing today? Anyway, folks, we're going to have a great show for you. This is Politics Done Right. I'm Egberto Willis, your host. And in the studio today, we have the one and only Howard Reynolds. How are you doing this morning, Howard?
Well, good morning, Egberto. I'm doing okay. I woke up with a pulse this morning. There was food in my refrigerator and the air conditioner was on. So I guess I'm going to be okay.
In this very hot city, that's all you can ask for. Well, today we have our good friend that is out with a little bit kind of down on the weather. If you're listening, Jack, we give you all the positive affirmation that we have out there to say, get better quick, get better soon. We still want our message of the morning. And if you happen to be up and listening, you can always call in and give your message of the day. Anyhow, you get better, my dear friend. You get better, my dear friend. Anyway, folks, we're going to have a great show for you today. As usual, you can always find what we're going to talk about at the newsletter, and that newsletter is found at politicsdoneright.com/newsletter, politicsdoneright.com/newsletter. We itemize all the things that we planned to talk about, but if we don't get to it, you'll still be able to pull it up there and get to the videos, etc., etc., etc. Now, I'll be frank, I much prefer the interaction, the discussion with our callers. So irrespective of what we have planned to provide, please remember, given that this stuff is out there for you to see anyway, I'd like you to call 713-526-5738. Again, that number is 713-526-5738. The extension is extension number 2. Extensión número 2. 713-526-5738. Extension número 2. Extension number 2. Anyway, folks, we're going to have a great show for you today. Do remember, you can get this program either on air, if you're on the dial right now, that is on KPFT 90.1 FM. Click that dial to 90.1 FM. You can also go and download the program, tune in from the Android or Apple store, and search for KPFT and listen to us on your cell phone. You can always go directly to our website, kpft.org, and click on that listen, kpft.org. Click on that listen, but you can watch us as well. And for those who were watching when we were in Chicago, you see that we were broadcasting, thanks to Howard and Jack in the studio. We were broadcasting from Chicago, from a hotel room. But, we got it done. You can watch the program at facebook.com/KPFT Houston. And you can watch the show as well on YouTube by going to politicsdoneright.tv. Politicsdoneright.tv. So we are everywhere for you to find. We're even on Twitch and so forth. But for the sake of KPFT right now, we're giving those that are quick to get to. Don't forget, give us a call, 713-526-5738, extension number 2. Topic of the day. Let me scroll up to it from the newsletter. AFT President Randi Weingarten on education. I don't know if you know the largest teachers association, the American Federation of Teachers. She was with us in Chicago, and I got a chance to interview her. Mondale Robinson, mayor of North Carolina, who also has formed a group to find and encourage Black men, both from rural areas, etc., where their undervote is humongous. He was explaining that 75% of them don't vote. Wow. And we also have a clip from Marjorie Taylor that I think the Biden administration has got to take and use it as an ad, because these guys are so trastornados. That word means these guys are so kind of different in the mind that they don't understand that the things that they attack Biden for are the things that Americans want. The thing is, how do you remind Americans that, hey guys, don't forget You actually want this stuff, guys. You actually say you want this stuff. But anyway, we are going to have a great show for you folks. So settle in and we are going to be ready to go. But before we go, I always do the thing and say, hey, Howard, is there anything you want to say before I get started?
Oh, not a thing. Just waiting for your show to start.
And waiting for the call. 713-526-5738. 713-526-5738. Extension number 2. There you go. 713-5... What did I say? 713-526-5738. Extension number 2. Okay, got that right this time. Okay, let's go ahead and start with Randi Weingarten, and then we'll move it on from there. I'm honored to have Randi Weingarten here, President of the American Federation of Teachers. How are you doing today?
I'm good. How are you?
We're doing great.
Thank God.
It seems to me like you have a big job ahead of you. With all that's going on, with people talking about CRT, people talking banning books, teachers not getting what they're worth. Let's start the discussion first of all with what's the state of our educational system right now?
So look, 90% of parents send their kids to public schools.
Right.
So what that says is that public schools are really enduring and important institution in this country.
Right.
It's been pretty important and enduring since the start of the country. And ultimately, what we need to do is we need to make every public school a place where parents want to send their kids.
Right.
Educators want to work, and kids thrive. So that's our job. Mm-hmm. That's what we want to do. Now, there's a whole bunch of people who I think, I shouldn't say a whole bunch of people, it's a pretty small minority, but they're pretty powerful, who saw in the midst of the pandemic how important teachers were.
Right.
And frankly, how important in-person learning was.
Exactly.
Not only to the kids and their parents, but to society.
Right.
So what's happened near the tail end of the pandemic and since is that those people who've always hated public education, who want to destroy public education, who after Brown versus Board of Education, opted to try to segregate schools as we were trying to integrate schools. Right. They've been on this voucher kick to defund and undermine public schools. And what they do is they try to create distrust. So what a shocker. Yeah. CRT. Right. We were told by the person who invented it. They did it to scare people.
I've played that clip many times over. Why is it that that simply seemed to not register? That in effect it was always a ploy.
Because I think what's happened, and I think it's starting to register now. Maybe not the clip itself, right? But this is the thing. Overwhelmingly, parents want our kids to learn honest history. Right. And overwhelmingly, parents don't want banned books. Exactly. So I think what happened at the beginning when Rufo started with CRT, right, when they started banning books, I think at the beginning, what they were weaponizing was the anxiety that everybody had of being alone in the pandemic, the disconnection. Exactly. And so I think what's happened now is when you see 2 years later, people saying, wait a second, of course we need to teach honest history. Right. I'm talking about the vast majority of Americans. Absolutely. I'm not talking about the white nationalists or, and the vast majority of the Americans are like, what do you mean? You're banning a book? You're banning the poem that Amanda Gorman read?
During the time of the witches, right?
Yeah. I think what we have to understand is that the pandemic created such trauma and anxiety for people. And it's not just the pandemic. It's gun violence. It's police violence. It's homelessness. It's this insecurity and uncertainty. Think about the opioid crisis. There's a lot of uncertainty and anxiety in America. Right. And so the pandemic just exacerbated those inequalities. It exacerbated that anxiety. And I think it made it easier, fertile terrain for a demagogue to actually exploit that.
Now, what can we do? Because I think this is important. For me, it's easy to acknowledge that teachers are likely the most important profession. I mean, our most important resources, most valuable resources are our kids. As such, the persons that we want to endear them to are well-paid professionals who can deal with kids. And we know authorized teachers, I don't want to disparage them, but they are lower paid and they have lesser requirements as teachers.
Well, let's do this kind of thought experiment for a second. Let's put aside the demonizers, the dividers, the culture warriors. Let's put them aside for a second. Because you know something? They're always, they're terrible right now. They're always there. This is what I think we should be, or this is what I'm trying to do. I'm not imposing this on anybody else. You actually have to meet people's fears and meet people's needs where they are.
Exactly.
There's two things I learned as a school teacher. One, you meet kids where they are. And it's not what's said, it's what's heard.
Exactly.
So those are the two things. As a school teacher, those are the two kind of rules of the road that I went into every classroom with. So consequently, there is learning loss. There is mental health issues. So we need to, in education, we need to create safe and welcoming environments for kids. But we also need to really focus on the foundations, the basics. So literacy. We have to make sure the teachers are prepared to teach reading, including phonics. And have a joy of reading. That's why we've given out 1.5 million books in America in the last year. Because there has to be a joy of reading, but we also have to make sure that teachers know how to teach reading and have the preparation to do that. And so that's really important. So how do we actually do that and help do that? Number two, let's make sure schools are fun. I'm so tired of testing. Let's make sure schools are 10. Let's experiential learning, hands-on learning. One of the best experiential learning things is career tech ed. And do you know the graduation rate of career tech ed? 94% of kids who are career tech ed graduate from high school. 70% of them go to college.
Are those some of the concepts that they're using in Finland right now?
Yes. And then they're using hands-on learning in Finland. There you learn practical skills. But so if we really focused on reading and we really focused on hands-on learning, and then we wrap services around schools so the schools really were lighthouses and anchors of the community. Think about what that would mean in terms of a powerful, not only vision, but effectuation of that vision in a community.
No, Randi.
So that's why when somebody then says, ban books, really? If you have everybody in a school reading together, what do you think the person who's going outside saying ban that book? You think they're going to get any residence?
No, not under that scenario.
So that's why what I'm doing, yes, we have to fight the banning of books because the banning of books is the banning of knowledge. We have to fight it. We have to fight for honest history. We have to fight to do that. But my vision here is let's make schools the center of community. Let's bring community in and let's do the things that we need to do to address learning loss, to address the anxiety, create safe and welcoming environments for our kids and our families, and focus on things, instructional things like experiential learning, practical skills, and reading.
Now, how are you going to build that support? With such a force behind the negativity right now, how do you start to build that?
So
I know you are doing a whole lot. I watch you all over the place. You're working hard as hell to get this done.
So next week, we got 2,000 teachers coming into Washington next week. And I'm going to talk to them all about this. And this is how I think you do it. Just like a politician does a campaign. Let's do an education campaign.
I love
real solutions for kids and communities.
I want to interrupt you on this. right now, I find that one of the biggest problems are the right-wing school boards that are getting elected throughout the country, who ultimately have control of teaching in the part. I'm in Texas, and I see what they're doing to a whole lot of districts in Texas. Does that mean we also need to have some sort of a campaign towards parents?
Yes, of course. I mean, you can't do a campaign. Parents and teachers have to work together.
Right.
And frankly, when you have like what the NPR poll from a couple of months ago said, 78% of parents like or love their kids' teachers.
Yeah.
So overwhelmingly, what we need to do is forget about ideology for a second. We need to bring people together over this basic set of values about let's care about the best interests of kids.
Important. 78 to 80% of people like their kids' teachers. It's almost like people like their particular politicians, but in the aggregate, they hate teachers. In the aggregate, not they hate teachers, but you know what I mean.
Right.
In the aggregate, they think that teachers are somehow, according to them, doing the wrong things for their kids. But each individual parent think their particular teacher is doing okay, which actually tells a story.
Right, exactly right. It tells a story of trust.
Right.
And it tells a story about the effect of 40 years, starting with Reagan, of undermining institutions.
And your job as the leader of a 1.7. You got 200.
Oh, we're growing.
A 1.7 million people organization is to change that. Now, I want to ask this question specific to Texas.
Right.
In Texas, we have too many teachers that have a tendency, and as much as the Republican-led system is against them, they continue many times in Texas to support these institutions. How do you get to those teachers?
Well, I think what happens is we have to create this environment of can-do.
Right.
I mean, look, I always say this. You can fight fiercely against something,
Right.
and you can win that fight.
Right.
And if you win the fight, you're in the same exact place as you started.
Yeah.
I mean, it's great energy.
Right.
Those are great fights. But we have to fight forward.
Right.
And I think what's happened,
Fight forward.
and I think what's happened is that people just give up
Right.
and they feel like they need to conform.
Right.
But frankly, we represent a whole lot of teachers in Texas. We're the largest union in Texas. And I watched the valiant fight the teachers did last year to make sure that schools were not defunded.
Right.
And that governor in Texas, because he lost that fight, he didn't give 1 cent to the schools. They have a huge surplus. So
$13 billion.
think about the priority system that all they cared about was voucherizing and privatizing schools. And when they didn't get that, they wouldn't give their kids, 90% of who go to public schools, a dime. And we have to tell those stories.
You know, they gave away $18 billion last week. $18 billion of that $30 billion went to not homeowners, but homeowners and business owners, and to reduce the taxes paid to schools. Because
what's happened is that because they wouldn't do any of this stuff, schools raised taxes themselves.
Right.
But we need to. This is a race. Look, the teachers in America are amazing. And the kids in America are amazing. And the parents in America really just want to have good lives for their kids. We need to find ways that we align in terms of public schools, regardless of ideology. That's what we used to do before the privatizers tried to divide. That's what we used to do before education became so political. And in this race between hope and fear, we are leaning into hope. Thank you.
Randi Weingarten, President.
Thanks so much.
Let me tell you, I've watched all the work that you've done. Please keep doing it. We need folks like you in charge.
Thank you. You too. Thank you, my friend. Thank you.
Well, folks, I hope you enjoyed that. She is the president of that huge Teachers Association, the American Federation of Teachers. Eric says that her Reagan comments were political. Her Reagan comments were not political, Eric. her Reagan comments were simply the truth. If the truth hits somebody politically, it's not a political attack. It is nothing but the truth. Let's go ahead and bring Augie into the conversation. Augie, how are you doing this morning, my friend?
Okay, now that I'm listening to you. Yeah, education has been going downhill under the Republicans, it seems like, where they give charter schools, what they call charter schools, private schools, all this money. And if anybody reads the newspaper nowadays, 2 years in a row in September, there are 2 private schools. On the first day of school, there was a piece of paper on the door telling their employees that they hired, the teachers and staff, that hopefully they can find a job. And the parents, when they came up there, it said, parents hope your students can, your children can find a school to go to, because they took the money from Abbott and the Republicans, built the school, hired staff, enrolled students, and then they went to the Caribbean with all that money that was left over. And
Listen.
So they're getting money without any penalties, and it was legal what they did. Take the money and run. And I was on the front page of the Houston Chronicle 2 Septembers in a row. And that's the same thing that they did with ERCOT. Gave them a bunch of money without any penalties, and they could do whatever they want. But instead of winterizing the equipment, they spend it on themselves, on the executives. So all that, it's they're tearing up our society. And
let me tell you something, Augie. Augie, here's the thing: the policies of these neoliberals, Republicans, etc., is to monetize everything, whether it's a commons or whatever. And let me explain that in detail. Every service that the government provides, or that we expect the government to provide, they figure out a way that they can privatize, and privatizing a process that is best done by the government is done to make a profit. So when you talk about private schools, it's about building schools on the cheap, hiring people on the cheap, and pocketing whatever you can spare, whatever is left over. And that's what they do. It's about using all forms to make money off of the federal system. And then it's amazing, because these are the same people who look at the poor person who needs a few dollars of food stamps and call them parasites and call them all these things. But then they rob legally, as you mentioned before. They rob legally. They get a stipend to do a project. And if they do that project efficiently, they get the money, whatever money is left over, they keep. Well, efficiency means things like in healthcare, telling you're denied the coverage that you need. You're denied the service. You're denied the medicine. You're denied the doctor visit. That's what making a profit in the health insurance industry is. Building a school and not paying teachers a living wage. That's how the guy who runs the school make the profit. I mean, and we do this over and over with all these different services that government should provide, and where profit shouldn't be made. But we do it, Augie. And what we have to do, though, is inform the population, because a lot of folks don't know that. They fall for the belief that private schools are better than public schools. That's not true. The testing proves that private schools are not better than public schools. Are there bad public schools? You bet your life there are horrendous public schools. I did some work at 2 elementary schools where they brought in folks from the outside to try to teach and uplift the kids. I did that for a while, and I was able to see, wow, yes, there are bad schools. And where do the bad schools tend to be? In the poorer areas. So that's what we're looking at. You have an area that's have moderately priced homes. Oh, it does very well there. So a lot of stuff that Randi is working on, and that she says she's working on, is to provide the blueprint for having a public school system that really, really works. We don't have one. There's a reason we don't have one, and it's because those who control our government at this point in our history, they simply believe in throwing, in privatizing and making money off your back. Anything else, Augie, before I go to tag?
Well, yeah, like HISD under this new guy from Dallas, his thing is he's going to go fire teachers and administration, and that happened to HISD once before.
Right.
That were teachers and worked in administration. They were defunded, so the private schools could get the money, and good teachers that liked the job, they weren't expecting to be laid off. They were hoping to stay a few more years, but they got retired earlier than they thought.
Augie, it's the same story again but again, we have options. Our first option in Texas is to vote, as Howard would say, vote the bombs out, because they don't care about you or me or any of our listeners right now. If you think these guys that many have voted for into Congress care about you, ask about your health care. Ask what have they really done to make your lives better. You know what? Progressives know what to do, and they've done it. Take a look at what's occurring in Minnesota. Minnesota had a 1-vote majority to get things done. And if you look at the list of things that they've done to actually help human beings, help Minnesotans, it's a utopia of bills that really makes lives better for people. I want you to check out the Minnesota story. I'm going to do a piece on that sometime in the near term. But anyway, Augie, thank you so kindly for calling. And let's go ahead and go to Tag. Tag, come on in, my dear friend. Tag, you're on.
Good morning, Edberto. Did you hear the Marjorie Taylor Green?
Don't cheat. Don't cheat. I have it for all our audience today, brother. I have it for our audience. And you know what? Since you brought it up, let me tell you what I'm going to do, Tag. Since you brought it up, I am going to play it. Is that good for you?
Well, let me say one thing real quick, and then I'll hold if you want to talk afterwards. But
let's talk now, because after I do the Marjorie Taylor, I'm going to play the Mondale Robinson. But go ahead.
One thing I realized through this whole thing is that when you look at what President Johnson did, or what Roosevelt did, those programs were long term, 25, 50, 75 years. That society would see benefits from those programs being enacted. And, I paid Social Security my whole life. I'm damn glad I did now. It wasn't really easy to pay Social Security all those years. It wasn't bad, but, now I'm getting the benefits of that because I got health insurance and some money coming in every month. But the fact is that what I hear from Marjorie Taylor Green and a lot of these other people, they want that sugar high from the economy. They want the money right now. And I was talking to a Republican the other day, and he said, boy, things were so great under Trump because the stock market went way up and we made all kinds of money. So then I talked to my mom about that. My mom says, well, yeah, we made money too. But the thing is that all that money evaporated once Trump was gone. The stock market gains under Trump did not last. And I think that's the difference between what Roosevelt and what Johnson has done and what happens otherwise. And people see that short-term gain and think it's great, but they don't look at the long term.
But I want to dispel, hold on a second, Tag. I want to dispel a fallacy. Anyone who thinks the stock market did better under Trump than under Obama had not read the charts. It's important for us not to buy into the things that Trump said. He likes to say he had the best economy. His economy compared to other presidents was at best mediocre. It was, what we have to stop. And, Howard and I was talking about that earlier. Saying something doesn't make it so. Just saying I had the best economy doesn't make it so. I've shown many charts on both this program and my 3 o'clock program that the Trump economy was not really the fallacy that everybody hears. Oh, it's a great economy. The economy was no better. It was actually much worse than it was under President Obama, under President Clinton, even under President Reagan. Trump's economy was never real. He just touted it. And by touting it, a lot of people just believe what they hear. It was not so. So let's not fall in, I hear people, some people, smart people, I would be in the coffee shop and I'm like, but explain to me, why is it that you think, why you voted for Trump and why do you say you would vote for Trump again? Well, I don't like the guy, but the economy really performed under Trump. That's a lie. It's not true. Even under Biden, this is one of the best performing economies, bar none, even with inflation under Biden. And it's all in the charts. And the reason Biden's numbers doesn't show that under his tutelage, the economy is doing fine is because the lousiest people at marketing are Democrats. Democrats are lousy at marketing. Progressives are lousy at marketing. I am lousy at marketing. But Republicans are great. They are great. They can make evil look like a positive influence. And that's what we're talking about. Anyway, Tag, let me play the video. If you have one short thing to say, I'll go to the next subject.
One more quick thing is that there's a big difference between how the economy is doing or how the stock market's doing and the people who's invested in the stock market. And the people who invested in the stock market, they realized a great gain under Trump because of the economic policies that Biden or that Obama had put into place, and they think that they were getting a return on what Trump did. No, it was, like you say, it was under Obama. But the fact is that Republicans want a sugar high out of the economy all the time.
Right.
They want this now, and they don't care what happens down the road. And when you look at, like I said, like FDR, for example, he put plans in for 50, 75 years to help build our country and not just a sugar high that
right.
we get from the other party. So thank you. I'm going to go.
Thank you very much, Tag. Great guy. I want Tag says something that we need to expand on, that sugar high. What makes an economy vibrant is putting in policies that are effected over decades, as Tag just indicated. You don't get the sugar high. But the thing about it is, even during the Obama administration, if you take a look at the performance of the stock market, again, Trump did not beat it, even with the good policies. Well, the good policies that Obama had or the good policies that others have had. I wish we had even better policies, but I guess we all have to move to Minnesota if we want to see that. But anyhow, folks, I want to address Marjorie Taylor Green. Here's the thing. You know that a party is sick. You know a party is defunct. A party has it's morally defunct. If the attack that they're going to make on you is because the things that you did or the things that you want to do help people, help the masses, make the lives of most much better. I want the president's administration to play this clip over and over and over and over again. Marjorie Green Taylor, and her cabal, the Republican Party in the leadership, believes that President Biden is on the same order of Johnson and FDR. Who wants to create a great society or to help people or to make people have a 2-car garage and a chicken in the pot, and he wants to make their lives better. And you know what? Marjorie Taylor said, that's not good. We need to get him out of there because he's trying to make your life better. Remember, in contrast, what even here our governor is doing. Things to make your life better. To make life worse. Do you have a friend who is sick, who has no health care? Blame your governor, because the health care is there. Health care is there if they would accept the Medicare expansion to the Affordable Care Act. Do you want better schools? Do you want better teachers? You know what? He says no because he refuses, as Randi Weingarten said, to give more money to the schools where they can actually provide better services if they were better capitalized. But would they do that? No, but he will give all these things away to the industries that are more parasitic than doing fine for anyone else. So let's hear what MTG, what Marjorie Taylor Green thinks is bad with the Biden administration. And if you don't see this, would be concerning. Check this out.
While speaking at the Conservative Turning Point Action Conference yesterday, Republican Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Green of Georgia warned that President Biden wants to address issues like education, medical care, and rural poverty. Take a look.
Lyndon B. Johnson is very similar to Joe Biden. How are they the same? They're both Democrat socialists. Lyndon B. Johnson was the majority leader in the Senate. Does that sound familiar? He was vice president to Kennedy. Joe was vice president to Obama. He was appointed as the president after JFK was assassinated. Then he was elected. His big socialist programs were the Great Society. The Great Society were big government programs to address education, medical care, urban problems, rural poverty, transportation, Medicare, Medicaid, food stamps, and welfare, the Office of Economic Opportunity, and big labor and labor unions. Now, LBJ had the Great Society, but Joe Biden had Build Back Better, and he still is working on it. The largest public investment in social infrastructure and environmental programs that is actually finishing what FDR started, that LBJ expanded on, and Joe Biden is attempting to complete.
So, Reverend Al Sharpton, that sound you're hearing is the White House thanking Marjorie Taylor Greene for the campaign commercial. Let's remember, of course, that in their first months in office, they eagerly embraced the Lyndon Johnson comparisons. The Great Society is what they were shooting for. They're trying to be the most transformative legislative presidency since then, those first 2 years when they had the Democrats in control in the House and the Senate. That sounds like, I think for most Democrats, that's music to their ears.
I was waiting on the attack. I mean, she said all of that, and I was waiting for, and what do you object to? She left out the Voting Rights Act and the Civil Rights Act, and she forgot to say that Lyndon Johnson defeated Barry Goldwater in one of the biggest landslides in presidential history in this country, and that Joe Biden defeated Donald Trump. He didn't inherit this from the assassination of his predecessor, but we won't let facts get in her way. I think that if I were the Democratic Party leadership or the Biden people, I would take that clip and run it all over the country, because the things she's saying that Biden stands for and LBJ and FDR stood for are the things most Americans want and many are living on right now. You're going to attack Medicare? I mean, I see now why they put out of the Freedom Caucus, because now she's in a caucus of her own, and it's not a very wise caucus.
And it is not a very wise caucus, that caucus of one. Look, when I saw that, and I saw her face on the screen before I heard the preamble, and I saw that, and I'm like, oh my God, this woman is making an ad. And it's the same thing that turned out the guy had said. She's making an ad that says, you know, and I always wonder about that. You know, we have so many people out there always saying, we don't want big government. We don't want this. Implying, of course, you want big corporations and big otherwise. And if you have those things, you know, the corporations, their fiduciary responsibility, the people that they owe, the people that they have to make whole, the people that they must do good things for are the shareholders and the executives, the profits that the executives make. They have by corporate rule, they have nothing that they owe to you or me or anyone else. They must do whatever they must do to maximize the value of that company so that the shareholders can get as much return on their investment. That is the business model of America. So when Marjorie Taylor Green goes out there and says, well, And what Biden wants to do is take some of that back to make sure that you are whole, to make sure that things work right for you. In effect, she's saying, why are you going to support a party that wants to support you? Why not support those who want to extract from you, be parasitic to you? Well, folks, there you go. When your mind is so messed up that folks who are trying to make your lives better, you're shunning them. And those who continue to paralyze you, to harm you, somehow they get the spoils. Folks, we got to do better than that. Let's inform ourselves. Let's not allow others to snow us. I look, before I go to the last video, which is 14 minutes, let me just say, if you want to call 713-526-5738, 713-526-5738, extension number 2. I'm going to hold off with the video for about 30 seconds to see if anybody wants to call in, because this last video is going to take us right up to the end. And if people call in and want to discuss other things, I'll prefer to do that. They can always go to the newsletter to see the last video. But if I don't get any calls in the next 30 seconds, I will go ahead and play that 14-minute video, which is another interview I did in Chicago with Mondale Robinson. So anyway, we got 20 seconds before I start that video, unless a call come in. 713-526-5738. Extension number 2, 713-526-5738, 713-526-5738, extension numero 2. Okay, we're going to go ahead and give you Mondale Robinson right now, and then we'll close the shout out after that. Let's go and get busy ahorita mismo.
Welcome to another edition of Politics Done Right. Hey, folks, when I talk about the activists of activists, I'm not being overblown. We're here with Mondale Robinson. Mondale, how you doing today, my brother? Great to have you here.
It's good to be back. It's good. I owe you this. I'm behind.
Actually, you stood me up the last net roots, man. I'm hurt.
Charge it to my head, not my heart.
Okay, I know it's not your heart. Anyway, look here. You've been doing a lot of great things. You have a new organization. Well, it's not new anymore, but you have an organization that's really getting voters engaged. Talk to me a little bit about it.
Yeah, man. Black Male Voter Project. We're going into our 5th election cycle right now. Mm-hmm. So she's no longer a baby.
I know.
She's a kindergartner now.
Exactly right.
And like kindergartners, she's learning so much more about black men specifically. What we know.
Let me stop you right here. Why do you have to centralize on black men? We know we have a voter issue around, but there's something specific about black men that you got to centralize. Talk about it.
Yeah, it's the lack of prioritization from the party, auxiliaries, and frankly, any organization doing this work. How is it 2023 and we're the only national organization talking to black men, which is the second largest base voter for people that believe in progressive ideas?
There are some people that would say, well, we think, it's the same all life matter kind of folks that says, why do we need to go ahead and segment or create an identity that we somehow have to treat black men differently in the voting process? Explain exactly why that is a must, especially given our history.
Yeah, I mean, listen. First of all, black men were the first guinea pigs for voter suppression. The 15th Amendment started what would become what we suffer from right now. And also, it matters that to be black man in America is unique in a way that is horrible. Black men suffer the worst social markers of any demographic in this country. We have the shortest lives, the worst economic outcomes. We're more likely to be killed or targeted by police officers, and also school and the prison justice system is not working for us. So to be black men and not see your issues prioritized by a party that says they're speaking on your behalf is the absolute reason why Black Male Voter Project exists.
It is interesting because I always talk to folks, folks would always talk about identity politics. We need to get away from identity politics. I said we can only get away from identity politics. We only can get away from women's issues, men issues, black men issues, etc. when identities don't matter. And at this point in our history, identity matters. Expound on that.
Yeah, I mean, getting away from identity politics sounds like a talking point for Republicans.
Right.
It's the idea that you don't need to be woke.
Right.
anti-woke mob or the woke mob, whatever they want to call us. Think about that in terms. Who wants to walk around sleep? What are you trying to hide from me? What do I need not know for you to suffer from your politics? So this idea that you don't need to talk about identities is to say that I don't need to say what's really ailing me. I don't need to talk about what's killing my communities. That to me goes against everything I stand for, not just politically, but religiously. I serve a Jesus that was a minority Jew born under Roman occupation, who was bilingual, who said what you do for the most or the least, and also what you don't do for them, you're speaking to my policies. So the idea that for me to not talk about identity politics is to go against my guy. And I can't do that.
Exactly right. Now, let's go deep now into your organization. Tell me first of all, what are you doing? What's your approach? How are you getting to these people, not only in the urban areas and the cities, but also in rural areas across the country?
I think what happens is, I'm glad you asked about rural area too, because a lot of the time people think about black men as the thug in the suburban, right? In this urban areas, right? Big cities. But in actuality, black people are overrepresented in rural spaces, especially in the South. Black people represent 30% of the rural population in southern states.
Right.
Nationally, we're only about 13% of the population. So that means we're overrepresented in rural spaces. So the idea that we have a program that does not speak to rural spaces would be incomplete anyway. But our program is a year-round program that does not focus on traditional methods or candidate work.
So let me stop you for a second. Does that mean you are not dependent on even though you've been around for 5 election cycles, you make sure, unlike what, let's say, the parties do, you don't only try to contact your folks during an election cycle, but throughout the year?
Yeah, I think that transactional nature of campaigns, like calling people 2 months before an election to talk about how important this election is, how important this candidate can save your life, does not ring true with black men. There's never been a candidate or an election that saved black men. This is why we find ourselves where we are right now. So we know if we're going to be trusted messengers for this demographic, then we have to show up every day. So we knock all year round. We also have programs that are built to mimic the lived experience of black men. It's called Brother Be Voting, which is our focus group. We don't let cameras in there. It's not like an overt political conversation. We only let 3 political people in, and the other 74 are brothers who are gang member drug dealers who don't vote at all or vote sporadically. Because I feel like if we're going to expand the electorate, we don't need to worry about voter registration with black men. We don't have a voter registration. We don't have a clientele problem. We have a product problem. People aren't buying the Democratic product, right? 72% of the black men that are registered in this country right now either did not vote or only voted in one of the last 3 elections. Listen to me. 73% of black men that are registered to vote in this country is rejecting our politics. 73% said, I'm not voting, or I've only voted in 1 election. These are brothers who are already registered. So don't talk to me about voter registration when you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing with this demographic. And people should know this is not a critique of black men, because we know that every time a demographic increase in its participation in an election, it's because they spent more resources on them. So when you see black men being more likely to be non-voters or 1 election voters than they are 2 election or super voters, then that's a critique of the model that you're running, that transactional nature that you're talking about, where you show up after Labor Day telling me how important this election is when you're not doing anything when the police are killing my brothers and my family members.
You know something, Mondale, you hit on something. I've been concerned watching how many, let's say, black men starting to jump on the Trump bandwagon.
It's not many.
And I know it's not many. I'm not trying to make it many, but I'm saying that any would. Any would, right? Believe it or not, speaks to what you're saying. It has been transactional. And somebody says, well, I've tried this, I've tried that, what the hell? Let me just try something else.
And I mean, so the beautiful part of it is black men aren't growing their support for Republicans, right? There's always, since the switch in the 60s, right? Since...
Explain that, because a lot of people have... You know, one of the selling points on the parties is like, hey, remember, the Republican Party is the ones who signed the Emancipation Proclamation, and the Democratic Party is the one who was into segregation back in the... Explain to folks why that is a silly argument.
It's a silly argument because of the same reason Ronald Reagan was a Republican. Let me explain what I'm talking about. In the 60s, there was a woman. It was a lot of people. But let's be clear. It was the work of a Southern black woman, right? You know what I'm talking about?
Yes, of course.
Okay. That said, I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired.
I know.
Right? And she argued and made the Democratic Party seat black people at the 1968 convention. Right? And when black people got seated by the Democratic Party, all the racist white Democrats left the party.
And formed
the Republicans. The Dixiecrats and the New Republicans.
Right.
One of those Democrats that left the party that year was Ronald Reagan. Right?
Oh, wait,
Exactly.
I didn't know that.
Exactly. It was Ronald Reagan.
Maybe that's why he started his campaign the way he did.
And that's exactly why.
Yeah.
He went to Mississippi, to Philadelphia, Mississippi, to send a point to white racists that,
I just learned something, Mondale. I did know Reagan was a part of that cabal.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Reagan, Strom Thurmond, all of them. So what happened is this idea that Lincoln Republicans are now Democrats. So people, that mixture, so I literally just screamed at Jesse Waters on Fox about this. Like, you're out of your mind. Your Republican Party is not the party of Lincoln.
Exactly.
You're not the party of Lincoln. That's almost like me saying, I'm the same as Frederick Douglass.
Exactly.
I'm not Frederick Douglass. Right? I would have never went to the Hayes administration. I would have never talked about black people not needing education. Right? That would have been my stance. So people need to understand that history matters for a lot of reasons.
I'm glad you brought that up. I am so glad because that is almost blasphemy in some
It is blasphemy.
In some black environments, that would be blasphemy.
It is absolutely. Anybody that understands black history, it's almost like saying, I'm the one that freed you, but also, check this out. Check this out. I'm the one that freed you from slavery, but then you discount the fact that in the 60s, you're the one that said I shouldn't be able to vote.
Exactly.
You're the one that said I should be killed for talking to or competing with white people.
I want to say something here to the audience. Let me tell you something, guys. One of the reasons it's important to hear all perspectives, right, is because even things, you learn the myth about Frederick Douglass, you learn the myth about Ronald Reagan, you learn the myth about all these things. When you have folks that are not distilled by the history that's been anesthetized or sanitized that you get in school, it's the best way. I learned something today. Continue, Mondale.
Yeah, so I mean, listen, talking to your audience, I would challenge all of y'all to stop thinking of the United Daughters of Confederates as the women who made the monuments, all these Confederate monuments get put up. And think about what they did to our education. If you dive into the United Daughters of Confederacy and see what they did to the Southern education, how they banned books, banned books, any book that
just start.
No, they banned, United Daughters of Confederacy banned books right after the Civil War. So if you said anything negative about Confederate soldiers, if you said anything negative about the Klan, then those books couldn't be in Southern schools. The idea of the lost cause that supports white people and white supremacy, and that there was Northern aggression, that's why Southerners fought the Confederate War, all of that was taught through the USD, the United Daughters of Confederacy's control over Southern schools. If you consider that, what then, and you see where we are right now, where you have Florida and other states banning books, we are about to face another generation that is completely ignorant to what really is happening right now.
About that. You're so right about that, but we are already ignorant from a sanitized history that we learned here. Come on, Christopher Columbus was a hero and not a killer, right? The things that we've learned in the country and that is now called woke because we decide to tell the truth. It's amazing.
Well, I mean, and the funny part is all you got to do is say, yeah, I'm woke. Like, if you think about what they're saying, the anti-woke mob. I
want to be woke.
Listen, exactly. Who wants to walk around sleep? You're going to bump into, you're going to trip over stuff. But let's be honest, like this idea that you're telling people be anti-woke. And we know what it is. Woke is the new N-word. You went from thug to woke. You're literally saying you have to be anti-black to be a part of this. Let's think about the history of the word woke. It came from Marcus Garvey. It came from black people saying stay woke, to be aware of what white supremacy can and will do to you, or what it is doing to you. So they definitely want their parties to be anti-woke. They say woke mob and sound like clowns. You're dog whistling to the wrong people. You're letting black people know that you're anti-black when you say anti-woke.
You know, it is amazing. What gets me is that in this year, we still have to fight these issues. And I'm not talking about fighting this one. I'm talking about that we still have to go through the psychological impacts of this kind of stuff. And anyway, to close this stuff out, brother, give the audience a closer. I mean, I think they've gotten a good education right now. Give us a closer.
I would say to your audience, to you, to anybody that can hear me in earshot, to truly discount everything you've learned about electoral politics and also the status quo. The status quo has failed us, continue to fail us, and it's because we allow it. There's no such thing as political power. That's perceived power. There's a lot people power, and we don't own that space. We need to take back the ideal of people power and remind elected officials, and I am an elected official, remind elected officials that I work for you. And when you don't do your job, you get fired. It's nothing revolutionary about electing somebody. What's revolutionary is unelecting an incumbent. So everybody should be dead set on unelecting incumbents that are not doing anything that benefits the least of us. Peace.
Mondale Robinson,
it's always a pleasure being your face,
on Politics Done Right. You keep up the good work because you know what? We need truth tellers, brother.
Thank you, brother.
You take care.
All right, peace.
All right, folks. I hope you enjoyed that. Look, we only have 1 minute for calls. So MOD, I asked for the calls earlier. Come on in. You got 35 seconds. Talk to me. MOD. Oh, I guess you'll be on in a little bit. Anyway, folks, MOD, 30 seconds. Go ahead.
Hello?
Yeah, go ahead.
There was a Confederate museum in Georgia. That was about 2015. And the students, they were Anglo, they were trashing the statue in front and trashing the building. And there were some folks there, and they were trying to protect the statue, and guess what happened?
What happened?
Those folks said that this is our history. Don't come over here and try to destroy it. And guess what? Those were the old black folks there that were generational slaves telling these white kids, don't trash our history. It got political and then got in the news, and so basically the funding for the museum, Confederate Museum, was discontinued and it shut down. But if you really want to look who controls the narrative, just see who's the most oppressive, and it's being used both ways. It looks like.
All right, I got to go now. You got your piece in MOD. Thank you so kindly for calling, but we are out of time. Hard block here. Call me back tomorrow. I ask everybody to call on time so that we can get all your voices in. Anyway, folks, thank you so kindly for being here today. I want to thank Howard for doing double duty in the studio. My name is Egberto Willies. This is Politics Done Right. And you guys know how I end this baby. I am what? Out. We spend a lot of time deconstructing the news, trying to parse it into a form that everybody can understand. We try to find those little nitpicks where it flies above the fray, etc. If you really like these videos that we do, I want to ask a big favor. Please go ahead. Number 1, subscribe to our channel. And number 2, please join if you can. Thank you so kindly for watching. Keep watching. Please remember to share. We must populate the entire internet with our progressive message, a message that we know is what most Americans say that they want. So help us, please join.